Okay, in this clip I'm going to be looking at the disclosure factor and the student's report that you as the tutor will be holding. Now I want you to imagine you have chosen this as the factor that you're going to focus on in this particular coaching session. Now let's just start. What does disclosure mean? So this is about the child's, your student's willingness to share their thoughts, their questions and feelings in their lessons. Now disclosure is incredibly important because it's fundamental to the quality of dialogue between the teacher and the pupil. If students do not disclose, are not able to share, to express, to communicate what they understand, what they don't understand, what their questions are, what they know, what they don't know, then obviously the ability of the teacher to help the student take the next step is very much impaired. So the quality of feedback, the ability of the students to feel secure enough and to have the strategies to disclose is going to be very critical in terms of the learning progress the student is able to make. And that is why the optimal score in this particular factor is high. It is high. Some of the factors, there may be other positions upon the scale, but in this one, across all lessons, it is higher than the midpoint that is optimal. And what we see here with this particular student is that their baseline score for this factor is very low. So we have a student here who, in terms of disclosure, is unwilling to share what they really think and feel and the questions that they have. And that's a posture that they adopt outside any taught context. And this is not uncommon for teenagers in year 10. They are often very self-monitoring and they're often very reluctant to take the risk of sharing what they feel are private or unresolved or confusing feelings and thoughts, and they often don't have the literacy to do so. Now what we see when we look at this particular student's subject reports is that in one subject their ability and willingness to disclose dramatically increases. So when we look at English here, we find that the student feels that in that context there they are able to disclose their questions and thoughts in that setting, and that is something that we want to recognize and notice and to very strongly affirm for this student. We also might find ourselves thinking, what is it about that particular lesson context which provides an environment that is safe enough for the student to take the risk of disclosing. We also find that there are, in the other two assessed subjects, chemistry and maths, the student retains that low disclosing mindset. So in those settings the student is unwilling to take a risk of sharing and giving feedback as to what they know, what they don't know. What our goal therefore is, in terms of this factor, is to help pull those low scores a little bit higher up towards the optimal score up here. Now the feedback that's going to help us do that is this orange speech bubble feedback here. Here's the student here who is able to choose to share what they are thinking and feeling in his lessons. And our particular student here, Barney, is going to need to become more like this student in order to pull these scores in this direction. So we're going to be focusing upon this text box feedback here, and here are the strategies that are going to help Barney to do more of this than he currently is doing. If Barney's scores were clustered over here and we needed to pull Barney's scores this way, then this girl is going to help us in her feedback because she is able to choose to hold back what she thinks and feels, and so her behaviours are what are going to be important for Barney if his scores were up here. And there are times, of course, contexts where it's important for a child to disclose less, to hold back what they're thinking and feeling. Our optimal score here is not fully over in the always sharing what I think and feel, because obviously if we have students who always share what they think and feel in lessons, then that can be very unreflective, it can be disruptive, it can get in the way of other students and not allow others to speak. So there is an optimal that is some way over from the centre. It is a higher level of sharing and thinking and feeling, but it is not an extreme level. So you need to look at where your students' scores are and see whether they need to pull their scores this way towards that optimal and become less disclosing, or this way towards the optimal and become more disclosing. Once we've identified which the direction is and which of these text boxes are therefore the relevant ones to focus upon, we're then with our student going to work our way down here and see which of these strategies the student is currently doing, and we're going to put a tick in there if they're currently doing it, or which they need to choose to start to do, in which case we're going to put that forward arrow in here. So if the student says, yeah, well actually I do need to choose to participate more fully in group activities, and that is something which the student feels they're prepared to do, that they're going to have a go at that's going to become their target, then we're going to put an arrow in here to say this is what I'm actually going to commit to doing. So they're going to score these 4 boxes here in terms of choices that they're going to make. Now we may want to encourage them that they're not just going to say they're going to do it, they really are going to do it, and by doing that they are going to motivate them to do that. We're going to say, well, if you don't do this, there may be consequences. You may, for example, not show teachers what you're really capable of. You may give teachers the impression you're disengaged and switched off. So there are some reasons down here to motivate them to actually commit to these targets. And there's also suggestions here about when to use these behaviours, because of course they're not going to be universally applicable all the time. There will be choices at times when they need to hold back what they're thinking and feeling, and ultimately we want to help the student learn to discriminate. But let's imagine that your student has ticked this particular target. If I don't understand something, I will ask for help. What they will do once they've said, yes, that's something which I'm going to do, they put a forward arrow in there, we're going to take that to the student target book here. We're going to identify the lesson they're going to try to do this in. It may be one lesson, it may be several lessons, and they're then going to write that target in here in their own writing as a commitment that this is their target for the week. They're then going to be able to go and discuss that target with their teacher, who, remember, will be primed to receive it because they've got the student's report. And at the end of the week, the teacher is going to assess the progress that they've made against that target, and they're going to assess the progress that they've made against that target. So if I go back to your student tutor feedback report here, when I've finished my coaching session, I'm going to go up to the front page, I'm going to, against the week, put the date and identify that I was discussing disclosure that week as the factor. So this is just the record that I'm keeping on the front page of what I have discussed. And over the weeks of the intervention, I may well return to pick up another one of these particular targets, or I may pick up another one of these here. If I feel that this factor is the significant one that is going to help my tutee move forward, I may stay with disclosure and focus a number of weeks on enabling them to make progress in terms of disclosure. However, if I feel that there are a number of other factors that I also need to look at, I may move on to those in other weeks, and we'll look at the other factors in the other clips. At the end of the intervention, I'm going to use this chart down here. The student is going to say, well, here's where I was in my different subjects at the start. Where am I now? And they're going to draw their particular arrowhead on here to show how much progress they've made towards the optimal, and then align that with their lessons, how much it has helped them. Again, our goal is to help them see that they have agency, that they can make choices and that they can improve their learning, and that behaviours they can change, and that this really is working. We're creating a virtuous circle where they say it is worth having a better quality of dialogue with my teachers, and I now know how to do that, and I have the skills and ability to have those kinds of conversations.